What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another entry into Battle on a Budget, where we take a look at decks that players can build without having access to some of the super expensive staple cards like Shaman EX, for example. And so for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Talonflame BREAK. So it kind of seems like Talonflame is a theme this week. We also uploaded a Greninja Talonflame video as well. So if you want to see another deck featuring Talonflame, definitely go check that out too. That one's probably a little bit more competitive than this one, but nevertheless, this will definitely be a fun one for us to check out. So, what's the hype about Talonflame? The big deal is it has this nice ability called Gale Wings. So, if this Pokemon is in your hand when you were setting up to play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon. So, that's really cool because we don't have to evolve the traditional route, with rare candies or just, manually evolving to get out this guy. We still play all of that stuff. We still play Fletchlings and all those other cards, but this ability is great because a lot of the time we can just start with this. And the real question is, why would you want to start with Talonflame? Well, the first reason is it'll just help make getting out your breaks a lot quicker if you can just break evolve into it on the second turn of the game. But also it has the attack Arrow Blitz. So for a single energy attachment, it does 40, and search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck afterward. So this is awesome because it effectively lets you teammates on the first turn of the game. So searching your deck for any 2 cards is just so powerful. So that means maybe you can grab yourself a break and a supporter, or just whatever you happen to need at that time. So it's a really, really great ability. Um, Also has free retreat, which is another thing I love that kind of makes it so we don't have to run any switching cards in this list. And fighting resistance is also kind of nice as well. So Talonflame is an all-around great Pokemon, but the deck is more centered around the break though. And so for Talonflame BREAK, it has 170 hit points, which is pretty decent for a non-EX attacker. And for 2 fire, it has Flare Blitz. It does 150 damage, and you discard all fire energy attached to Talonflame BREAK. So that's kind of nice, especially for the math against EX Pokemon, because if you attack with Talonflame and do 40, on the following turn you'll do 150, which knocks out pretty much every non-fighting Fury Belted EX. So Zygarde EX, Yveltal, pretty much anything, like I said, that doesn't have fighting Fury belts, this thing will take care of. And also, pretty much it's a given against non-EX decks like Greninja or Mega or pretty much anything else. It just knocks out in one hit anyway. So definitely a powerful attack that it has. So it is worth noting we do have some interesting choices for our Fletchlings and Fletchinders. We play 2 of the Fletchling from Generations, has the attack Warble. So search your deck for 2 Fletchling, reveal them, put them into your hand, and search and shuffle your deck afterward. So this is nice because it's just a nice consistency boosting attack, help us get out more Fletchlings. That way we can start evolving all of them a lot quicker. But then we're also running 2 of the Fletchling from Steam Siege, has the attack Peck for 20 damage. And that 20 damage is actually a little bit relevant just because if we don't start with our Talonflame, this damage might actually come in handy. So if we peck early on in the game, and then we eventually get out our Talonflame BREAK, 20 plus 150 is 170, which does knock out a lot of EXs that are in the format. So typically I would opt to start with, or I would opt to max out the other Fletchling, but since the damage here is kind of relevant in certain situations, we're going to do a split of them and kind of choose which ones that we want to have out in play. And same thing goes for our Fletchinders that we're running. We have one of the ones from Steam Siege, has Glide for 30 damage, which is pretty nice. And then we also have, I believe it's the one from Roaring Skies, it's the Fire type one, has the attack Peck Off. Even though it only does 10 damage, the effect of the attack is pretty good. So before doing damage, discard all tool cards attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So we were just talking about fighting Fury Belt. This will really help against that since there's no tool removal. That's a hard thing to say. Tool removal in the format right now. Since Megaphone and Xerosic got rotated, If our opponent has a Fighting Fury Belt, we can do this, get rid of that, and hopefully that'll make a difference at some point. But it's also good against other things too. You can get rid of Spirit Links or Bursting Balloons, all sorts of stuff. Okay, and then to round out our Pokemon line, we're also just playing one Stardust Jirachi. Has the attack Stardust for 10 damage. Discard a special energy card attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. If you do, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage, done to this Pokemon on your opponent's next turn. So this is really good against a number of decks. Mega Rayquaza, Giratina EX, Mega Mewtwo, etc., etc. There's just a lot of decks that run special energy. So I've always kind of liked Jirachi in a lot of decks. You could debatably cut this if you want to help increase your odds of starting with Talonflame, but in my testing, I've found it to be useful in some different matchups, so I opted to keep it around in this list. Alright guys, so that is it for the Pokemon. Really, if we ran anything else, we would just be decreasing our odds of starting with Talonflame. I actually thought about even cutting a Fletchling or this Jirachi just to increase the amount of games that we can potentially start with Talonflame. Since we run 5 basics and 4 Talonflame, that means roughly around half the time we are going to be starting with this guy. So we actually want to run as little basic Pokemon as possible. But anyway, so moving on to our trainer cards, we have 2 Professor Sycamore, discard your hand, draw 7. We're opting for a lower count just because this is a break evolution deck. It's essentially a stage 3. So we might have rare candies that we would have to discard, maybe some breaks. So we're going to be having our support line more based around N, but nevertheless, we definitely want to have a couple copies of Sycamore, especially for the later turns of the game. So like I said, we have a heavier count of N. Each player shuffles his or her hand and his or her deck, then draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. So in the early game, it gives us a nice form of shuffle draw, and in the late game, we can potentially disrupt our opponent a little bit. So we have 1 Pokemon Ranger, remove all effects of attacks on each player and their Pokemon. So this is good against Giratina EX because we can remove the effects of Chaos Wheel, which usually prevent us from playing tool cards, special energy, and stadiums, all of which we play in this deck. And then also Glaceon EX could be a big problem as well, just because it prevents of attacks from evolution Pokemon. So we really need a way to deal with that one. So we have 1 Lysander, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with his or her active. So it just lets us choose what we want to take knockouts on. 1 Hex Maniac. So until the end of your opponent's next turn, each Pokemon in play, each player's hand and discard has no abilities. So even though our Talonflame does have a super important ability, it's really only important on the first turn of the game. Other than that, we can abuse Hex Maniac through the course of the whole game. So I think Greninja would typically have a good matchup against this deck. And so we really do need a way to better deal with that, I think. So Hex accomplishes that. It's also good against other things, Yanmega, just really any abilities. We can prevent things like Shaman as well, Artillery, Zoroark, all sorts of things. So for Versus Seeker to reuse our supporters just the most amount of times. 3 Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your hand, search your deck for any Pokemon. So it's nice because it lets us grab anything out of our deck, like our Talonflames and Talonflame Breaks. 2 Level Ball, search your deck for Pokemon under 90 hit points. So we can get Jirachis, Fletchingers, and Fletchlings. You could debatably cut this for a 4th Ultra Ball if you really want to max out your consistency. But I found that there's a lot of times we don't want to discard resources that we have, so that's why I'm playing only 3 Ultra Ball and playing 2 of these instead. So for Rare Candy, we do want to get out these Talonflames as quick as possible. So we want this because it allows us to skip our stage 1 and go straight to the stage 2. 2 Super Odd. So shuffle any 3 Pokemon or basic energy back into your deck. So this is nice just to help keep that steady stream of Talonflame breaks throughout the course of the game. 3 Trainer's Mail, so look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal a trainer card you find there and put it into your hand. Just helps us draw into what we want at the most optimal time. So if we're digging to hit like a rare candy or maybe a supporter or something like that, it just helps us get out what we want to actually get in play. 2 Max Elixir. It's kind of an interesting card. Since Blacksmith is no longer in our standard format, we really do need an extra way to get energy uh, onto the field every turn. So let's say our Talonflame Break is the only Pokemon in play that has any energy on it, and we have to discard it all with its attack. Well, the next turn we're not going to be able to attack. Um, not with the break at least. So if we can potentially get 1 Max Elixir off in the early turns of the game, all we will need to do is attach 1 more extra energy, and we will be able to use another Talonflame Break's attack. So look at the top 6 cards of your deck, like I said, and you attach a basic energy you find there to a basic Pokemon on your bench. That means that we're going to have to use this on Fletchlings. We can't use it in the late game on Talonflame breaks. So it's kind of important to make sure you have probably 1 Fletchling ready to be Max Elixired onto at some point. So it is a little bit situational. It's not as nice as Blacksmith, but like I said, I do think it's really important that we have an extra way to get energy onto the field every turn. Okay, and then 1 energy retrieval. Put 2 basic energy cards from your discard into your hand. So we're discarding cards with Ultra Ball, with Sycamore, with our Talonflame breaks. We also run Scorched Earth. So there's going to be some energy in our discard piles. And preferably, we want to use our super odds on our Pokemon line as much as possible, at least. So this is just an extra way to get some energy back into your hand. Okay, 3 Bursting Balloon. So it's a cool card because if it's attached to one of your Pokemon, you discard it at the end of your opponent's turn. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon is damaged by your opponent's attack, they take 6 damage counters. So this is really nice because, especially on the math for doing attacks, this works out. We can potentially knock out certain megas in the game. Take for example the new Mega Gardevoir EX. I believe it only has 210 hit points. So if they were to attack into us with a Bursting Balloon to take 6 damage counters, and with the Talonflame Break, we can finish them off with its attack. There's also other situations like if we use Arrow Blitz on the early turns, we do 40 damage. They attack into that Pokemon with a Bursting Balloon that puts them up to 100. And with the Talonflame Break, we'll do 150 for a total of 250 damage. So that'll take care of fighting Fury Belted EXs that might have 220 hit points. And then also Mega Pokemon. So even things like Primal Groudon and things like that that have 240, we'll be able to knock out now more easily. So like I said, it just helps with the math in terms of knocking out certain Pokemon. Okay, and last of our trainer cards, we are running 2 Scorched Earth. So once during each player's turn, that player may discard a fire or fighting energy, and if they do, they draw 2 cards. So since we don't run any Shaman EX, just because like I said, it would really hurt our odds of starting with Talonflame if we ran any more additional basics, we do need an extra way to draw cards in this deck. So you could potentially cut this for just other supporters, but since we didn't have a counter stadium, I opted to play this one instead. So it's just nice, it gives you just a little bit of extra form of draw power. So that is it for our trainer cards, guys. For the energies that we're running 8 basic fire. I really don't want to go any lower than this just because I've always felt that 8 is the absolute bare minimum that you can run in decks with Max Elixir. Anything less than that, your Max Elixirs typically fail. So that's why it's important that we play at least 8. And then the other interesting card we're playing is going to be Burning Energy. So we're playing 3 of these. If it's attached to a fire Pokemon and the Pokemon it's attached to would discard this from an effect of an attack like Talonflame breaks, you don't have to discard the energy. So that's really cool because Like I said earlier, if Talonflame BREAK is your only Pokemon with energy and you discard all of the energy to use its attack, well, next turn you're not going to be able to Flare Blitz again. So if you haven't Max Elixired already, you're going to have to take a turn to start powering up a different attacker. So Burning Energy is great because it helps us keep a steady stream of attackers throughout the course of the game. It's worth noting we're only running 3 just because we don't want to see this on like the first turn of the game, just because this will only work on our Talonflame breaks. So we can't attach it to Jirachi or our other Talonflames. It only works on fire Pokemon. So we're playing 3. You could debatably even cut one for an extra fire energy to help out your max elixir odds. Either way is perfectly fine. They both kind of achieve a similar effect. Max elixir nets you an extra energy attachment for the turn, and burning energy basically keeps an extra energy in play. So they both kind of achieve a similar effect. I would say just choose whichever you feel works out better for you. So yeah, guys, that is the list we're going to be testing out here. I'm going to switch over to the battle video. That way you can actually see how this deck looks in action, and we'll go from there, okay? Alright guys, so we have ourselves a game here. We are going to call the coin flip. We'll go for tails. Come on, Pika. And cool, we do win the coin flip. And of course we want to go first here. Oh, unfortunately we don't get to start with our Talonflame, but actually this is kind of a bad hand. Luckily we do have Scorch Earth to potentially bail us out if we don't have any other draw support. Our opponent has a fairy deck here, and it looks like they have Ninetales as well, so it's hard to see what we're playing against at this point. Fighting Fury Belt, so maybe a Xerneas deck, or I don't know, it's too early to tell here. Let's see if we trying to think. We didn't really see anything else that they could potentially have. So it could be a Rainbow Road deck or a standard Xerneas deck, or maybe even like Florges. I think that one's a little bit more unlikely though. Luckily, our opponent did have a couple mulligans here, and we do draw another basic, which is nice. Okay, yeah, and it looks like it's probably going to be a Rainbow Road deck. So we did a deck profile on that as well, so if you want to see our version, I'll be sure to put a link for you guys to check that out too. And here we have kind of an awkward hand, so I think we should Hex. I do like that. That'll kind of take the Shaman option out of the equation for our opponent, and we can grab a Fletchling, or actually I think we probably should have saved the level ball and grabbed. Well, we grabbed Fletchender, but it's not the end of the world, because actually this may have been a decent play. We can tell our opponent, hey, we have something we want to play on next turn. Maybe you should end this to get out of our hand. So maybe we can bait our opponent into ending us here. That would be pretty cool. Okay, we actually just see a pass from our opponent, so it looks like they're having an equally as rough start. Or maybe that Hex Maniac ended up hurting our opponent. It's hard to say here. So here we still don't have too much to work with yet. It looks like I'm debating on Lysandering up the Zorua to potentially buy us another turn. Oh my god, this hand is pretty abysmal. We can evolve into a Fletchender this turn, so that's the plus side, and we are making it harder on our opponent to knock us out by Lysandering up that Zorua. That'll prevent them from attaching a DCE and taking a knockout. So here we're going to Ultra Ball, get rid of a Ranger and an Ultra Ball. And we can grab Jirachi. I think that could be a potentially important card. But here, I actually like this play. We're going to get out 2 Fletchenders, just in case our opponent does find a way to retreat out of the active spot and knock one out. We will have an extra one, which will allow us to evolve into Talonflame the following turn. And here we're just going to attach a Bursting Balloon. Just to kind of say, hey, like, don't attack into us, because we really want to preserve our very fragile board that we have at this state in the game. So this is actually an example of, I guess, why I don't think this particular deck is the strongest, just because if you don't start with Talonflame, a lot of times you can have kind of awkward starts here. but it's definitely a fun deck to play. So let's see what our opponent can do this turn, though. They really haven't played down much at all. You'd have to imagine they have at least an energy or some sort of supporter somewhere in their hand. Or even like an Ultra Ball or something. Dang, and just a pass. That is crazy. So here we'll Level Ball. We can grab ourselves a Fletchling. Seems fine to me. Unfortunately, we don't have an energy to attack. That would be great. That way we could search our deck for a supporter and draw out of this horrible hand we have. So unfortunately, we just have to pass here. And does our opponent finally get anything? That is the question. I mean, luckily, even if they can retreat and attack with their Xerneas, they're not going to do too much damage to us. Same thing, even if they evolve into the Zoroark and attach a double colorless energy, they're not really doing too much. Okay, so here we see a Yem hit the board. That's interesting. So they are going to be playing Yem Mega as a backup attacker, if we had to assume. And unfortunately, they Lysander up our Fletchling. It's kind of annoying here. Okay. And we do have an end, so that's actually really cool. It does mean we'll have to bail our opponent since they have a dead hand, but ours is equally as bad. So here we'll attach the Bursting Balloon to our Fletchling, and that way if they do find a way to retreat, which they probably will since they have a fresh hand now, they will at least take 6 damage counters. Okay, so here we did get a Talonflame BREAK, attach a Burning Energy, and we have Jirachi in our hand as well, so that could be a potentially really good card in this matchup since they probably play 4 DCE. So, so next turn we can opt to, that's kind of annoying, they have a Fighting Fury Belt. As long as they don't play that startling Megaphone we saw when they revealed their mulligan hands to us, we'll be in an okay spot, because if they do retreat into this Xerneas break, this Xerneas and knock out our Fletchling, they'll take 6 damage counters, and we'll be able to finish it off with a Talonflame BREAK as well. Here we're just checking what we've used so far. Hopefully they don't bump our Stadium, just because we might want to use Scorched Earth as well, just because our hand is a little bit dead at this point. I don't know what else we would really need at this point. Maybe just a Versus Seeker to potentially Hex or Lysander. But we have a Talonflame BREAK on board with a Burning Energy, so we can probably attack for a couple turns. Okay, here he's going to waste the DCE to retreat. And just taking a knockout Rainbow Force, so 170. Okay, just wait for our opponent to draw their prize. We could potentially bench that Jirachi and use Stardust, but we can just knock this thing out with our Talonflame BREAK, so we can just save the Jirachi, I think. So we'll do that, we'll attach, and we have a couple options here. We could potentially Hex and take away the Yen Mega opportunity for them for the following turn. Or we could maybe even save it to Lysander up something for the following turn. So here we have Versus Seeker. Looks like I'm debating if I really want to play it or not. And here we have an N. And unfortunately, I don't know, in hindsight, I think maybe saving the Versus Seeker was a better idea. Or using it to Hex, I think that would have been great actually in hindsight. We probably should have actually Scorched Earth first, because if we had known we were going to draw the N, we probably could have felt safe hexing instead of using N right there. But I mean, we are able to get down another Fletchling here, and we do have another Versus Seeker in hand anyways, but I do in hindsight think we probably should have just hexed there. So here we're going to see a Flare Blitz for the knockout. Okay, that's cool. We draw into a Talonflame, so we can rare candy into another Talonflame for our next turn. And luckily, I don't think we're in danger of being knocked out this turn. The only way I could see it is if our opponent attaches double colorless energy and max elixirs onto this Xerneas and gets down another Pokemon on the bench as well. looks like our opponent's taking a minute to decide what they want to promote here. I think the Mega is actually the safe one since it has a free retreat cost. So maybe he knows he has a Floatstone and Zoroark in hand or something. Okay, so we do see a Zoroark at the board. I'm just assuming he has a Floatstone if he didn't promote the Mega. Okay, so versus Seeker. Okay, I'm just taking a minute to decide what they want to do. I could potentially see them ending this here. Yep, seems pretty good here, since we did have a pretty large hand at that point. Okay, and this hand isn't that bad either. We have a Bursting Balloon, we have a Max Elixir, so we can potentially get down extra energy attachment this turn. Okay, so here we did get the Zoroark, okay, and we see a Shaman come down onto the bench, drawing until he has 6 cards in his hand. Okay, and Octillery hits the board, so our opponent is going to be end-proof for the rest of the game probably, which is a little unfortunate. And here it's kind of annoying they bump our Scorched Earth and evolve into Ninetales. So Ninetales has the, I think it's Barrier Shrine ability. I could be wrong about the name, but it basically locks whatever stadium is in play. So our opponent actually had a pretty good turn. We definitely should have hexed them. That way they wouldn't have been able to attack with the Mega or bench that Shaman to draw extra cards. But nevertheless, our hand is actually kind of decent right now. We can go ahead and rare candy, but we probably want to Max Elixir first, but we end up whiffing it. So here we're going to rare candy into our Talonflame. We can attach a Bursting Balloon to the active, and hopefully we can end and draw ourselves another energy to take a knockout on this Mega right here. Oh, and that is pretty gross. So we did not get what we needed, but luckily we can still Aero Blitz and draw what we want. Even though it's not taking a knockout on this Mega, if they do attack into us, they will take 6 damage counters. So here we can draw a Mega, or I'm sorry, a Talonflame BREAK, and probably a Burning Energy seems pretty good to me. Or Max Elixir, but, oh no, we don't have any more basics other than Jirachi. I mean, that seems pretty good to me. I don't know what else we could really want at this point. Alright, so if I had to guess, we'll probably see Xerneas Break come up and deliver a knockout here. Actually, probably in hindsight, we should have taken a Fire Energy. That's probably what would have been better, because that would have at least opened up the a potential Jirachi play if we wanted to attack with it for a few turns. So I think that actually would have been a little bit better. I was like recording these games at like 11 o'clock, which is like super late for me, so I apologize if I'm playing a little sloppy in this game. But here opponent's just going to end us anyways, so looks like all that stressing over what to get with Aero Blitz is for nothing. Okay, so we do hit a Fire Energy, which is cool. That will give us the option for a Jirachi play. And we do have Versus Seeker, so we will be able to draw a, or get some sort of draw supporter out of our discard. Oh, okay, and here we're just going to see a Mega. That's interesting. So here, have a couple different options. We can promote Talonflame and just take a knockout with Aero Blitz. That seems kind of decent, actually. So I think I'm debating, do I want to... I can get a little aggressive here and Lysander the Xerneas and use Jirachi Stardust, but we're pretty confident that Xerneas is going to come up into the active spot regardless at some point. So I'd rather just save the Versus Seeker to potentially use it later, or just get a supporter. I think that's definitely the better thing here. So this way we can take a knockout and at least refresh our hand too. So not the greatest thing. Hopefully we can grab something useful here. Max Elixir or Versus Seeker. Yeah, Versus Seeker is probably the better thing to get here since we already have energy in hand. Here we'll just Aero Blitz for the knockout. And then we can grab 2 cards, so let's grab a Break and maybe a Burning Energy. I know last time that wasn't the right idea, or the right move, but this time might be a good one. Oh yeah, we did have an extra Talonflame in hand, so the rare candy seems fine to me too. And we get an energy retrieval, so it's actually kind of cool. Our hand is pretty sufficient, or it will be for a few turns, so we could potentially use this versus Secret on something, on maybe one of those luxury supporters like Hexmaniac or Lysian, instead of having to use it to draw cards. But it looks like their opponent got a versus Seeker. We might see an end here, since they know that we just searched our deck for 2 specific cards. Yeah, so it's definitely a good play on our opponent's side there. But luckily our deck is starting to get a little bit thinner, so... Oh, but that is a gross hand. Luckily we have Jirachi on the bench, that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so opponent barely takes a knockout on our Talonflame. Hopefully we can draw into something here. Oh, an energy retrieval, just what we need, more energy. But luckily we do have this Jirachi. This will hopefully buy us a turn or so. So we'll use Stardust, knock that DCE off Xerneas, and prevent any damage or anything done to Jirachi this turn. As long as our opponent doesn't have another DCE and a Pokemon Ranger, we are in good shape. But I think that actually might be the last DCE, because we've knocked out one Xerneas. He discarded one early on. There's another one attached to that Zoroark, so I think that's actually going to be his last one, unless he plays Special Charge or like Puzzles of Time or something. So what does our opponent grab at is the question. Maybe just another Xerneas would probably be a decent idea. Oh, okay, Yama, that'll work. That'll work okay too. And here we're going to see an N, and I will not say no to that. Okay, that's a little bit better of a hand. We can at least evolve our Talonflame BREAK and start powering that thing up. So even on the following turn, if they knock out this Jirachi, our Talonflame BREAK will be finally powered up to take a knockout on this Xerneas. Okay, so we will attach there. We can attach a Burning Energy. Looks like I'm debating on it. I'm not sure, not quite sure why. And so here, I'm just kind of worried if, okay, so I could have retreated into the Fletchling, but I kind of wanted to bait our opponent into knocking out this Jirachi, because we don't know if they have Lysian or not, but I want to keep attacking with it just to kind of make it look like a more prominent threat. Just because they will be able to knock out this Talonflame BREAK if they had a Lysander, so I just kind of wanted to put some extra pressure on and maybe bait our opponent into knocking it out, which they do. Not sure if they have Lysander or not, but I'm glad they knocked out this Jirachi instead of our Talonflame BREAK. Okay, so we have a Max Elixir, we can play that. Cool, so that will allow us an extra attachment for the turn. We can attach to the active and then use Flare Blitz to knock this thing out. Going down to 3 prizes, our opponent's still in the lead, but they don't really have any efficient attackers at this point. Zoroark only does a measly 40 damage, and Mega only does 50, so right now we're actually in a good spot, I think, even though our opponent is ahead on prizes currently. So, and luckily we do have an energy retrieval in hand as well, so we will be guaranteed a knockout on this next turn, unless of course our opponent has like a Xerneas with a Fighting Fury Belt or something like that. But if it's just a Mega, okay, so we do see a Xerneas hit the board, but I don't think they would be foolish enough to just promote it with a Fighting Fury Belt, so I think we are definitely guaranteed a knockout here. So it looks like they're just going to opt to attack with Zoroark, just do Mind Jack for 40 damage. Okay, so we can attach for turn to our Talonflame BREAK and probably just end here. Not the best hand, to be honest, but luckily we do have an energy retrieval for the following turn as well. Here we're just checking what we've used so far, so we have one more Talonflame in the deck, I believe. Okay, so there we will just take another knockout. We draw a Super Rod. That could actually be potentially be useful just to get back another Talonflame to maybe evolve this Fletchling and get it off the board as a cheap prize, because right now it's an easy target. So we're just going to see a Sycamore from our opponent. They'll probably attach for turn to Xerneas, if I had to guess, and take a knockout, or not a knockout, but just attack again with this Yen Mega for another 50 damage. So here we're going to see an Ultra Ball. Probably get out another Zoroark, or maybe even potentially a Yen Mega Break. I'm not sure if our opponent runs that. Okay, so just a Zoroark, that seems fine to me. But luckily we have a good idea that our opponent is out of double colorless energy, so we do have 2 turns, which basically guarantees that we can kind of win here, I almost want to say, because we'll take a knockout this turn, that our opponent can attach an energy for turn, not knocking us out, and then we can attack the following turn and take a knockout here. So here we're going to Super Rod, it looks like. Okay, I was debating on doing that. Okay, so here, so I'm thinking about Ultra Balling as well. I think I was checking to see if I have another Fletchender in the deck. I think we do though. So we're going to Energy Retrieve. We'll get back 2 Fire Energies into our hand. That way we can attach to our active. So here we're going to Super Rod. Probably grab Jirachi, but because we don't know if our opponent plays Special Charge or not. And maybe we can grab Fletchender. Oh, Talonflame. I mean, that seems okay too. I think we still have a Talonflame in the deck though. I think Fletchender's probably better because I believe our active Pokemon actually evolved from a Fletchender, if I'm not mistaken. So here, I think I was debating. I was like, I couldn't remember what I still had in the deck at this point. So I was like, man, I really just don't know what to take. So let's just grab Talonflame. But oh man, I did not notice the countdown timer on the side of the screen there. And oh my god, that's so frustrating because that means our turn ended. And it doesn't even let you get anything with the Super Rod, which is kind of weird. I wish they just kept it in your hand. That would make more sense to me. Oh my god, so here, this is actually really, really bad for us. Because now we're going to be in a bad spot, to be honest, just because next turn they will be able to attack with this Xerneas to take a knockout on us, and we won't be able to win the game now. So yeah, this is really bad, actually. That was a huge goof up on my part. Oh man, we really need Lysander to take a knockout on the Shaman. I think that's our win condition now at this point. So here we can attach. Here I'm just checking to see what all our opponent has used. So yeah, just attach there, and we can retreat. Then we need to Ultra Ball some stuff to really thin our deck and increase our chances of hitting a Lysander for the next turn. So we're just checking what we have. Luckily, we have 2 versus Secret left in the deck, and we're just going to enter our opponent down. Doesn't really matter too much. They can draw out of it with Octillery, but we do have Lysander in hand for next turn. So as long as they don't Lysander our Talonflame Break, we're going to be in good shape here. It's frustrating. We could have actually just won this turn if I hadn't made that. If I had been paying attention to the timer on the side of the screen there. But so, oh, okay. So our opponent's just going to end us. That's great. That means. Well, it's not great. We have to draw versus Secret off of this. And we do. That's amazing. So now we're pretty much guaranteed to win, I think. Unless our opponent plays Escape Rope, I think we actually have the game here. So, I mean, I really don't know what else our opponent can do. They also need an energy as well. So we're going to see an Ultra Ball here. Our opponent only has 3 cards left in deck, too. So they might even deck themselves out. Okay, so we're just going to see a Remoraid. We don't really care too much about that. Yeah, if our opponent Abyssal Hands here, they actually just lose the game. again, unless of course they have the energy and Escaper. But here our opponent just concedes, so we narrowly pull out a victory with this Talonflame BREAK deck. Probably would have assured the victory if I had been paying attention to the timer on the side of the screen, like I said. But nevertheless, we still pull out a win. And so yeah, that is the Talonflame BREAK deck. Like I said, I don't think this is the most competitive deck, but it's definitely decent enough if you're on a budget. And it's always really fun if you do manage to start with the Talonflame as you're active on the first turn. It definitely runs a little bit better, and you can make that happen. But yeah, guys, that is Talonflame BREAK. I appreciate you watching this. If there's any other decks you guys want to see us cover and do deck profiles on or record games with, feel free to let us know in the comments below. I always want to hear your input. But that's it, guys. As usual, feel free to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our merch at rarecandytcg.com. We're actually doing a sale right now. This is the last weekend for it. So take advantage while you can. Certain items are 10% off. And it's actually their last printing of a couple designs. So after they're sold out, we are not going to be getting any more of those specific designs in stock. So definitely take advantage while you can. Any support for the channel through merch that you guys buy would definitely be appreciated. But with that, guys, I appreciate you watching, and we will see you for the next one, okay?